So, again, today we are going to be chatting about our spring Silver Minds Bootcamp. It's specifically designed for individuals who are 50 years old or older and want to focus on a plan to improve cognitive health and prevent or delay cognitive decline later in life. So, before we get started, let's go ahead and shift gears because I know you're all at different times of day. And Rosemary is here and she's, I guess, about 5 hours ahead of us. So she's winding down. And some of you are in the morning, some of you are midday. We all have lots going on. So let's go ahead and shift gears with a little bit of a mindfulness practice, which is our 4-6 breathing. And I'm doing this to help you transition, but also to give you an example of an exercise we often do during our Silver Minds class together. So I would like you to put your feet on the floor, relax your shoulders. And when we begin, I want you to either with your eyes open or eyes closed. We're going to breathe in for 4 and then breathe out for 6. If there's any reason you can't breathe out for that prolonged period of time, feel free to go back to normal breathing. Do what's best for you. But in for 4, out for 6, and we're just going to repeat this 5 times. It allows us to shift our nervous system from that go mode, which a lot of us are in right now, to slowing it down so that we can be more focused, we can process the information coming up, and we'll be able to remember the information that we're acquiring within the next hour. All right, so feet on the floor, relax your shoulders, eyes open or closed, and let's breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now just go back to your regular breathing. And if you were able to do that little breathing exercise, just go ahead and chat. Type in the chat box. How do you feel after taking a few mindful breaths? Are you ready to transition into a new activity? Good. Efren says calm. That's how I often feel. I often feel calm and much more ready to focus. Rosemary says that she feels calmer right now. Exactly. Kimberly also calm. That seems to be the theme. So it's so important to keep that in mind that when you get frazzled throughout your day and you just need to take a break because you've suddenly realized that your mind is all over the place, it's in 1,000 places, and your focus is no longer there, you can't remember things, you have that ability to shift your nervous system from that um, go mode to slow mode, right? From that time where you're really inattentive to being ready to learn. Excellent. Everyone said calm. Patricia, Carolyn, everyone says they feel much calmer. That's great. And like I said, this is just an example of one of the exercises we do in our live Silver Minds classes. And it's been interesting because we just had one of our members yesterday say that, now that she's incorporating breathing into her day, deliberate breathing or coherent breathing, she's actually much more focused. she has more energy, and she feels that she's not only doing it during anchor times, which we select during our Silver Minds class, but she's doing it whenever she feels a little stressed or inattentive or worried or anxious. She's able to draw on that experience. So, again, just one sample of an exercise we teach you and then teach you how to apply it in your day to day. So, I want to start this session by learning a little bit more about you and why you're here. What are your goals? First, I want to start with who brought you here today? Why are you here? You know that we're going to be discussing cognitive vitality for seniors, cognitive health as we age. So, why are you here? Are you here for yourself, a parent, a partner, a friend, maybe your clients, or all of the above? While you're chatting, while you're typing your answers in the chat box, I'm going to share with you why I'm here, what brought me to Silver Minds. This picture on the screen that you see, this is me and my mom. We were celebrating her 90th birthday, and she passed away at 93 years old just a few months ago from dementia. And if any of you here, and I'm sure many of you here, have experienced a loved one or a friend who has been going through dementia, it is heartbreaking and it is truly so difficult. It's one of the most difficult experiences I think that we can go through. Um, but I learned a lot. And so it was from my experiences with my mom and my past experiences with play attention that really is the foundation of Silver Minds. So I am the vice president of Play Attention, and many of you here today are Play Attention clients, or you may not have started your Play Attention program yet, but you've been looking into Play Attention to develop executive function. And I've had the opportunity to use Play Attention with my clients since 1996. So for 30 years. And it's been an interesting time over the last 5 years. We've seen this shift in our client base where most of our clients, the majority of our clients, are adults between the ages of 45 and 85. So that's been a really interesting shift. And it's exciting because we know as adults now, it used to be thought that after the age of 9, you were hardwired, right? You couldn't change your brain after the age of 9. But we now know that age is not a factor. If you're provided with the right challenge and the right feedback, you can create new neural pathways throughout your lifetime. And so that's why a lot of clients now are starting play attention much later in life and getting phenomenal results because they know the power of the brain and that we can continue to grow and change throughout our lifetime. So that has been an interesting experience. And then I've combined that with my experience that I mentioned most recently, my personal experience, which was watching my mom as she declined from dementia and having that experience. And after she passed away, I had time to really reflect on that experience. And as I mentioned, it was heartbreaking to see a very bright, vibrant, very socially active woman decline. And over the last year of her life, we had her in three different living facilities. And each facility said that they had lots of stimulation. They had three or four activities directors. They had individualized cognitive plans for each client. And I believe that that was their intent, but many of these places are overwhelmed and understaffed and overworked. So at the end of the day, they're really only getting through the basics. And so my mom didn't truly have the stimulation that I think she really needed. And so knowing that That is one of my experiences, and knowing the possibilities of cognitive development and how we can improve throughout our lifetime, again, is the foundation of Silver Minds. So, Silver Minds is a division of play attention where we take it one step further and integrate all of the elements we know are truly important for cognitive health as we age. So I just want to share some of the responses. It looks like a lot of you are here for yourself. So it looks like Efron and Rosemary, sorry, Patricia, Betty, you're all here for yourselves. And Betty mentions that she's here for friends as well. Carolyn says, I'm here for self, parent, partner, and family. Uh, another Carolyn says, my sister. Estelle says, myself, and for my venture. Excellent. Your business venture. Very good. So I'm glad you're here, whether you're here for yourself or a family member or your clients or all of the above. I'm really glad that you're here to learn more about what we can offer. So we know why you're here. What is the main thing? If you think about the main thing you want stronger right now, go ahead and type that in the chat box. What do you think that is for you right now? Is it focus? Is it memory, follow through? As you get into this new season, what do you think is most important for you right now? Go ahead and type that in the chat box. Let's take a little poll. And it could be something else, something that I did not put on this slide. Oh, Rosemary, she wants to improve her ability to avoid procrastination. Excellent. Chuck wants peace of mind. Kimberly wants to improve focus and concentration. Robert is here because he wants to improve sleep and energy. Efren, relationships and memory. Excellent. Very good. Exactly. And Maggie says, keep brain working well. Very good. And that's why we're here, Maggie, because we want to keep our brain working well. Because what is our most valuable asset? Our most valuable asset, as Maggie said, it's our brain. We want to keep that strong. It is our most valuable asset that we own. AARP, and if you're not familiar with AARP, but that's the American Association for Retired Persons, and I'm sure if you're outside the United States, you have a similar organization, but they did a survey of their client base. So these are all retired individuals, and they wanted to know as you move into retirement or as you are in your retirement currently, what is the most important thing to you? And they thought that the responses were going to be health or financial security. But the number one response from retired individuals or individuals who were about to retire, the number one thing that was most important to them was cognitive health. They wanted to stay mentally sharp. And that's probably why you're here today, because you recognize how important that cognitive health is. You can have all the money in the world, but if you cannot remember your child's name, or you don't recognize your friends, or you're struggling to communicate, then it really doesn't matter, right? It negatively impacts your quality of life at that point. So it's really important we recognize that our brain is our most valuable asset, and we don't have to wait in order to take steps. We don't have to be in emergency mode in order to start trying to work on our cognitive health, right? We can take steps now. We can be proactive. You don't wait to start brushing your teeth until all of your teeth fall out, right? You brush your teeth, you take proactive measures, you brush your teeth every single day so that your teeth don't fall out, so that you do have healthy teeth throughout your lifetime. And that's the same with your brain. We shouldn't wait until that emergency mode, which oftentimes we do. And we can take steps now before cognitive decline occurs so that we can protect our most valuable asset and prevent or delay cognitive decline. If you or a loved one is already going through some type of cognitive decline, that's okay too. We can still engage in different types of exercises and movement and mindfulness so that we can prevent further or delay further cognitive decline and improve the quality of our lives. So that should be our focus. We need to keep in mind that cognitive decline is not an inevitable part of normal aging. It doesn't have to occur. And we can take this note from Dorothy, who's on the screen here. At 104 years old, she became the oldest person to complete a tandem skydive. Now, not all of us will be jumping out of an airplane at 104 years old, but isn't that inspirational that Dorothy kept mentally sharp? She was able to keep that positivity as she aged, and she was jumping out of an airplane at 104 years old. So, cognitive decline is not an inevitable part of aging. There are steps that we can take in order to ensure cognitive vitality. So, what protects us as we age? What protects cognitive health as we age? Across studies, and you've probably seen a lot of different studies come across in your email or online, or you may be listening to some TED Talks, and it seems that there are specifically 5 pillars that are critical to cognitive health as we age. That's social connection, keeping those friendships, keeping those relationships, regular movement and breath work, mindfulness to calm that stress response, lifelong learning with real world practice. I don't know if you saw our blog this week, where studies are showing again and again that incorporating that lifelong learning into your world as we age can actually diminish the risk of developing Alzheimer's. So, social connection, regular movement, mindfulness, lifelong learning, and executive function training. These are the critical elements to keep in our lives as we age. But even though we know all of this, we don't always follow through, right? There seems to sometimes be a disconnect between what we know and what we actually do. Can anyone relate to that? You can raise your hand or type in yes in the chat box if you can relate to that statement. I know about movement and social connection and mindfulness or lifelong learning, but what I know and what I do, there seems to be this disconnect. And many of you are saying, yep, Colleen, Kimberly, Patricia, Terry, you're all saying yes, you can relate to that. And it's so common because life happens, right? So let's reflect on this. Even though we know what we need to do to support our cognitive health, type in one thing in the chat box that often derails your good intentions. Chuck says, yeah, and it makes me nuts, right? It does, right? Because cognitively, Chuck, you know what you need to do. And then in your day to day, time evaporates, and all of a sudden you realize that you're not taking those steps you should. So go ahead and type in one thing. And I know it may be hard for some of us to narrow it down, but what is one thing that often derails your good intentions? Why are you not making it to the gym? Why are you not going out with your friends on a consistent basis? Why haven't you enrolled in that course at the university for continuing adult education? Uh, Carolyn says distraction. Kimberly says moving. I guess you're moving from places. Betty says family obligations and demands. Exactly. Dr. Kashi says, I forgot to take my medicine in the morning. Okay, that could derail the plans. Rosemary going on the phone. Oh, Rosemary, I'm sure that a lot of people here can relate to that, right? Your social media, the doom scrolling. All of a sudden, you look up and 2 hours have gone by. 2 hours you could have been with friends or at the gym, but you suddenly realize that you just spent 2 hours on your phone scrolling. Colleen says things that disrupt routine. Absolutely. Danielle, work related pressures prevent me from going to the gym, working late. Robert says fatigue and depression. So a lot of you can see that and relate to each other. There are so many things that pull at our attention and our time. So it's sometimes really hard to be consistent. Even though we know what we should be doing, it's hard to be consistent. Chuck says, I can't make a decision without the peanut gallery, mother, talking me out of it. Oh, okay. That's one that no one said here, but that's really a good note as well. So the powerful thing about our Silver Minds program and what you'll get from the Silver Minds Bootcamp this spring is that it builds in that consistency for you. It's built for real life. It's not about your willpower. It's not about willing yourself to get to the gym. We're going to provide you with a clear plan that's done with a community. So all of our Silver Minds sessions are done in group settings. And that has been amazing experience, whether you're doing them in person or online. Most of our community is online. And initially, I was afraid we weren't going to have a tight-knit community online, but the community online that we've developed is so supportive. They are amazing for each other and supportive, and they become your accountability buddy. So suddenly, even though you said, if you say to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym, or maybe you say, I am going to leave work at 5 o'clock to at least get 30 minutes in at the gym. You say that to yourself, but it doesn't happen. When you say it to your group, your community on Silver Minds, suddenly you realize that you are making those trips to the gym because you know the next time we all meet, we're going to ask how the gym was. So it's so nice to have a community to share your experiences and not feel alone, and also have some of that friendly accountability. So it's a clear plan done in a community with research-based structure. So again, let's revisit or go back to the 5 pillars of cognitive vitality and why they work together. Okay, so we talked about that social connection, the physical movement, mindfulness, continuing education, and executive function training. I want you to keep those 5 things in mind because that's what you're going to get out of every Silver Minds session together. And one thing I want to point out about executive function is that so many people think, gosh, I am getting old. I have such a hard time paying attention. Or the most common is, I really feel my age because my memory is not as sharp as it used to be. But as we age, it's more than just focus and memory. It's truly about executive function. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in depth later on, how executive function, those mental processes that help us get through every day, are critically important to keep in mind. So, brain health is not about one habit. It's not about just getting to the gym. It's not about just going out with your friends. It is a system, it's a combination of all of these elements because each of those pillars support one another. Movement, any type of exercise, helps with mood and attention. Whenever you exercise, It's like you're giving your brain a bubble bath. Your brain gets flooded with positive neurochemicals. So it is one of those things that immediately, even after 5, 10, 20 minutes of exercise, you will be more focused. Your memory will be better. Your impulse control will improve. So, movement helps with mood and attention. Social connection supports emotional well being and motivation. And when you combine movement with social connection, for example, going to the gym with a friend or going out on a walk with a friend, the benefits are that much greater. Mindfulness helps calms the nervous system so the brain can focus. We saw that initially when we did that mindful breathing together, and you realized that you were calmer, your brain was calmer, you're clearer. And lifelong learning keeps the brain engaged and adaptable. Betty says the strongest one is continuing education, social connection, and activity that need work for me. So, Betty, this is an exciting part about those Silver Mind sessions is that we're going to bring those all together for you in a very structured way. So we know that they all rely on each other, not just one in separation, but they all build on each other and support each other. And if one pillar starts to slip, the others often get harder too. And many of you probably have experienced this in the past. If you're really stressed, it's harder to stay organized, right? All of a sudden, you're really stressed and your house may look like a hurricane just went through it, right? So it's harder to stay organized. If your sleep or routine is off, then it becomes harder to exercise. Like, I'm sorry, I forget who mentioned it, but she mentioned that she's often, Danielle said that she's working late. So her routine is off, and then it gets harder for her to get to the gym. Or if your sleep is off, you're just exhausted, you feel like you can't go to the gym. If you feel isolated, if you're not surrounded by friends or family members, then you may feel less motivated. And if you stop challenging the brain, it becomes easier to fall into passive habits. And I think challenge is something that we should talk about here as well, because that challenge component is really important. Many of you here might say, well, I'm going to check this out, this Silver Minds program out, but I think I'm doing pretty well because I'm great at Wordle. I do Wordle every weekend and I am fantastic at it. And that's great. If you are wonderful at Wordle, if that's really a strong point for you, or if you can do the Sunday New York Times crossword puzzle and you're really good at it, that's great. You're really good at those things. And we want you to keep those things in your routine because they're enjoyable for you. So they have their place. But if you're really good at those things, you're not providing yourself with enough challenge. Because what we're talking about here is sparking new neural pathways so that we're developing cognitive reserve. We're creating new neural pathways in the brain. And in order to spark new neural pathways, then you need to be challenged. And it is true that most of us practice or engage in activities that we're good at, but that's not going to create new neural pathways. You're just simply going down the pathways that are already hardwired in your brain. They're already there. You've gone down that path many times. You've done Wordle for many, many, many weeks in a year. And so you've already created that pathway in order to spark new neural pathways, which is critically important as we age. Then you need to be challenged. And in every single play attention session and in every single Silver Mind session, we're going to ask you to just challenge yourself a little bit more. Okay. Brain health is not about chasing one perfect habit. So it's good to start with one, but we have to build upon it. It's about creating a personalized system that supports follow through so that we no longer have that disconnect between what we know and what we actually do. And that's what Silver Minds provides. And remember how I talked about executive function being a critical part of this, because executive function is the management system of the brain. Strong executive function is what allows you to take all of your good intentions and actually put them into action. So I know many of you here today are familiar with executive function, but for those of you who are not as familiar, you can think of executive function as, like it says here, the management system of your brain. It's what controls your attention, your behaviors, your emotions. It allows you to plan and prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. So it is a set of mental processes that help us get things done on a day-to-day basis. But we know as we age, executive function is often negatively impacted. And if you have ADHD, then executive function can be negatively impacted by your ADHD. And if you are aging and you have ADHD, there's no such thing as late onset ADHD, right? You've always had ADHD, but you may find that as you age and as you go through different changes and your hormones are changing, and the brain does change as we age. It does truly change. Processing speed gets a little bit slower, memory gets a little bit harder, it's a little bit more difficult to filter distractions. The brain does change. However, we can still improve, right? And if you are going through the aging process and you have ADHD, you may suddenly see that aging exacerbates the symptoms of ADHD. Have any of you experienced this where maybe you have ADHD, but you had some really solid systems in place, but all of a sudden you're in your 60s and you realize that your systems aren't working as well as they once did. And you can't understand why. Carolyn and Kimberly right away said yes. And that is so common. It's not just you. It is definitely something that happens to a lot of individuals. So we have to take those proactive steps in order to improve executive function. Sherry says, oh, yeah. And it is so common. And that's what play attention does. So if you are here and you are a play attention client already, you know that you have your customized plan where we pinpoint the underlying cognitive skills, such as attention stamina or task completion or working memory. We incorporate those into your play attention program in order to improve executive function. And when you're doing your play attention sessions, if you are not as familiar here as of yet, you will be wearing a body wave armband. Now, on the back, there are 3 sensors. And when I slide this armband on my arm, those sensors are now monitoring my brain activity that tells us how attentive I am. And then that information is given over to the computer where I'm allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with my mind, but more specifically, my attention alone. And I receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not I truly am focused and paying attention. And that is critically important. So you can't just go through the motions, right? You're not just doing a series of cognitive exercises or brain games. We're incorporating it, we're taking it a step further because you might have found that you go through cognitive exercises or brain games or brain training apps and you get better in the game, but not necessarily in life. So, what play attention does is it enhances that experience where no matter what you're working on, whether you're working on attention stamina or task completion or working memory, you have to be paying attention. If you're not paying attention, then the activity will stop or the character will go in the wrong direction. And you have to focus back in order to continue. And that is so important. And we've shown this over the last 30 plus years to get superior results in improving executive function. And it's backed by 3 university studies done by Tufts University School of Medicine. What they wanted to know is the integration, that integration of feedback with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping. Is that important? Or can we just give you a series of cognitive exercises and get the same results? So they had 3 different groups of individuals, all identified as ADHD. The first group received play attention, so they had full integration. The second received just cognitive exercises, so brain games on the computer, no feedback technology, and no behavior shaping. And the third was their control, and they received no intervention at all. And at the end of the study, the play attention individuals were the only group that showed global improvements. And that's the critical piece. Global improvements means they didn't just get better in the game, but they applied those improvements in all areas outside of the exercises. They improved academically, socially, behaviorally, and in the areas of executive function. So, really important. If you have not yet started your play attention program and you'd want to learn more, I do recommend typing in consultation so that we can learn a little bit more about your specific areas of concern, and we can talk about what a play attention customized plan would look like for you. Because that strong executive function is going to be the driving force behind Silver Minds. Okay. But you can do Silver Minds whether you're using play attention or if you have not yet started play attention. So you can still enroll in the Silver Minds Bootcamp either way. So Silver Minds delivers all 5 pillars each week with support from a caring community. So again, we're bringing it all together so there's no longer that cognitive disconnect. So we're going to go from good intentions to a reliable plan. And we start with a pre-assessment. So every participant within the Silver Minds program is going to begin with a pre-assessment. And if you enroll in the Silver Minds Bootcamp, this will be included in your package. So we're going to use the assessment so that we can personalize your plan and track your progress. We're going to be using a combination of cognitive measures and the National Institute of Health emotion wellness scales. Because again, we know that it's critical we look at not only cognitive health, but emotional well-being to make that plan and to document progress over time. The goal is clarity, not labels. So it's nothing to be worried about. I know sometimes the word assessment can be a little bit worrisome, but this just gives us a benchmark. Where are we starting so that we can set goals and really document progress over time? So, as I mentioned, you will have the opportunity to do just the assessment piece if you just want to do the assessment and then think about Silver Minds later. But if you enroll in Silver Minds Bootcamp, that pre-assessment will be included for you. And keep in mind, we will need a time, about 40 minutes to an hour, for a feedback session to review the results with you. So once we do the pre-assessment, then we will start the Silver Minds program. And the Silver Minds virtual and in-person program is going to officially kick off the last week of March, really the first week of April, I guess. So March 30th, and then we start right there. April 1st, I think, is a Tuesday. I believe I'm right on that. And so we're going to start. So it'd be ideal to go ahead and get those assessments done before that time, okay, before our kickoff. And they're going to be a bi-weekly rhythm that covers all 5 pillars. That means you're going to do 2 live sessions per week, okay? We're going to provide you with all 5 pillars within those live sessions. We're going to give you practical tools, not just theory. We might talk about the why, but then we're going to practice in the session. Everything we talk about, we're going to practice so that when you leave the session, you're going to easily apply in your day to day. We're going to have that guided practice during the sessions, not only homework. And then you have that community that I mentioned that creates that accountability and momentum. And then we'll have follow-up videos and take-home materials to support your growth in between sessions. So this is really just kind of a rundown, and I know this is a lot of information. So I will provide this in an email follow-up so you can review what we're going to cover in 3 months together. Not only topics, we're not just going to do some lecture and some talks. We're going to be talking about these areas, and then we're going to have practical applications or practical steps we can use in our day-to-day lives. So we're going to talk about your goals and cognitive vitality. We're going to be talking about attention and focus related to aging and how to train it. We're going to focus some days on working memory, so that you're not constantly getting to the store and forgetting why you're there, or the classic lapse of working memory, walking into the room and not knowing why you're there. You know you walked into that room for something, but you can't quite remember. We're going to work on nutrition. We're going to talk about stress and how to calm that nervous system. We talked a lot this week in Silver Minds about sleep because we're going to have a big sleep experiment on Sunday, aren't we? Many of us here are going to go through daylight savings time. So we talked about sleep and the importance of sleep, and we're taking a sleep diary, and we're going to create a sleep hygiene plan before we get to Sunday. So these are all examples of the topics we are going to cover in our 3 months together. And of course, the outcomes, because what are you going to get at the end of this boot camp? Silver Minds Spring Bootcamp helps you develop that cognitive reserve. So you're not just going to add years to your life. We're going to add life to your years. Does anyone here know what that cognitive reserve means? You can raise your hand or type in the chat box. Are you familiar with that term, cognitive reserve? Remember how we talked about how decline is not inevitable? Okay, many of you are saying no, you've never heard that before. So this is what we're finding to be critically important. There are many studies that have shown that once an individual has passed away and they do autopsies on the brain, some of those autopsies can point to very specific hallmarks that indicate that individual had Alzheimer's. But then when they talk to family members and friends, they say, no, he or she never had any symptoms of Alzheimer's or cognitive decline. So much of this is attributed to cognitive reserve. And what that means is that when you are involved in a program like Silver Minds and you're creating new neural pathways because you're actually working on that lifelong learning, you're active in executive function training, you're doing mindfulness, you're doing exercise, you have good nutrition, and you're creating these new neural pathways in the brain, you have lots of different networks created so that if stress or problems arise, your brain is more resilient. You have a lot more paths to take in order to solve a problem. So that's why many theorize that those individuals that are challenged and stay cognitively active and socialize have a better cognitive reserve and experience less cognitive decline as they age. So we are going to help you reach your goals and protect your greatest asset with more consistent follow through with brain health habits. You're going to have stronger focus and mental stamina, better stress resilience and a calmer nervous system, clearer memory support strategies that you can rely on, and the list goes on and on. But I want you to think, what is your goal? What is your goal that you're going to get out of attending those Silver Mind sessions? What is your ultimate goal? And many of our clients have given us feedback. And I think this one quote from Carol is so important. She says, Silver Minds gave me direction and hope. And I think hope is the number one word I hear again and again and again, that I feel hopeful when they get done with a play attention or Silver Minds session or a whole entire Silver Minds course. They feel more hopeful. They know that they have the knowledge and they have the steps they need to take in order to stay cognitively sharp. Gary says if maintaining and even improving your mental clarity and memory is a goal, then this is the program for you. And an interesting side note about Gary, he's in his 70s and went through our Silver Minds course, and he is now working teaching boxing to a group of individuals who have developed Parkinson's. So kind of giving it back as well, knowing that he can make an impact on others. So there are basically, and please do keep your questions coming. I know that some of you do need to leave a little bit early, so just keep your questions coming, and I will go ahead and answer those questions probably at the end. I want to make certain that everyone has all of the information they need for next steps to participate in our Silver Minds Bootcamp. So you have two options. Most of you will take option one, which is our virtual Zoom group meetings. Those group meetings will be, again, twice a week for 60-minute blocks of time. And the play attention training is an optional add-on. So 2 sessions per week for 60 minutes, 1 hour block of time. Twice a week, we incorporate all of those pillars that you may not have been able to incorporate into your life. We're going to make certain that it's easy for you. If you are in the Asheville, Hendersonville area, then you can do your in-person group session. If you do the in-person group here in the Asheville area in North Carolina, then those sessions will be a little bit longer. They'll still be twice a week, 75 minutes to 90 minutes, and that will include your play attention training time. So you'll be coming to our center. We'll be doing the Silver Minds pillars, and then you'll also have extra time added on to do your play attention training. And again, with the virtual group, you can do the virtual group with or without play attention. Play attention is that add-on. Okay. And Jason says he has play attention, but hasn't been regular because of multiple challenges. Jason, remember you have your individual dedicated focus coach that can help you get back on track. And a lot of our Silver Minds participants right now, this was a great way for them to get back on track with their play attention, where we just started everything, restarted everything in a very structured way. So we'll work with your focus coach to get your sessions back consistent, and then you'll have Silver Minds to enhance your work within play attention. So Jason, if you want to connect with your focus coach, just make a note there and I'll make certain that that you are connected with that individual. Okay. So again, it's 3 months of boot camp sessions. That means twice a week. So there will be 24 live sessions. We're going to start that very last week of March. March 30th is the week that we will be starting. Ideally, remember, we'd like to get your assessments done prior to March 30th if we can. And if you reserve your seat, because there are limited opportunities here, but if you reserve your seat by the 20th and use promo code EARLYBIRD, you'll receive 10% off. Okay, so 10% off your total package. And I just wanted to make a side note that the early bird special actually came from the fact that as we age, our melatonin is released a little bit a little bit earlier in the day. So if you're noticing that as you age, especially in your 60s and 70s, that you feel like going to sleep a little bit earlier and you're waking up a little bit earlier, that's natural. And that's actually where the early bird special came in. Restaurateurs noticed that the older population, the seniors like myself, like to go to dinner a little bit earlier. Everything gets shifted a little bit earlier. So use that early bird promo code to get your 10% off. I just gave you that little side note so you would remember the promo code easily. All right, so you can choose your way to attend. The virtual boot camp is $25 per session, and you'll have those 60-minute sessions twice a week. So with your early bird special, you'll get 10% off. So your entire boot camp is just $540. If you're going to do the in-person here in the Asheville area, you're going to, again, remember, get the play attention incorporated into that package. So with your early bird special, it'll be $864. And remember, whether you do the virtual boot camp or the in-person boot camp, we need that time to do your assessment and have that feedback session, because that will be incorporated into your package. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, it was a pleasure speaking with all of you. Look forward to working with you.